Once upon a time, in a quiet little town where nothing extraordinary ever seemed to happen, there was a small diner that smelled like fresh coffee and warm bread every morning. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's name, where people came to escape their problems or share their happiest news. But one day, something happened there that would change two lives forever. If you had walked in that morning, you would have seen a young woman behind the counter, her hair tied back neatly, her eyes tired but kind. Her name was Emma. She wasn't just beautiful. She had the kind of beauty that made strangers pause, a quiet, natural glow that no makeup could fake. But Emma didn't think of herself that way. She was too busy trying to survive, working double shifts at the diner just to pay her rent and keep her younger sister in school. She had dreams, of course, dreams bigger than this small town, but dreams didn't pay bills. Not yet. The bell above the door rang, and Emma turned to greet the new customer with her usual polite smile. That was when she saw him. Daniel. He looked out of place the moment he stepped inside, like a character who had accidentally walked into the wrong scene. Tall, sharp suit, expensive watch catching the light, hair perfectly styled. He looked like the kind of man who belonged in the tallest building in the city, not in a sleepy little diner where coffee cost $1.50. He walked in as if he owned the world, or maybe as if he was tired of owning it. His eyes were cold, distant, almost annoyed, and when they landed on Emma, they didn't soften. She approached him, menu in hand, her polite smile still in place. "Good morning," she said softly, though inside she felt oddly nervous. But Daniel didn't even look at the menu. "Coffee, black, and make it quick," he said, his voice clipped, impatient, as if he had more important places to be. Emma blinked, taken aback. She had dealt with rude customers before, but something about him stung more than usual. Maybe it was because of the way his words carried no kindness at all, as if she wasn't even a person, just part of the furniture. She nodded silently and turned away, her chest tightening. She didn't know this man, didn't know what his story was, but she felt something strange, like their lives were somehow about to collide. As Emma poured his coffee, she overheard him on the phone, his tone sharp, frustrated. "I said no. I don't care what the board thinks. If they can't handle the deal without me, then maybe they shouldn't be on the board." He ended the call abruptly, ran a hand through his hair, and let out a low sigh. For just a second, Emma saw it, the mask slipping. He wasn't just arrogant. He was hurt, angry, lost. When she set the coffee in front of him, Daniel didn't say thank you. Instead, he frowned. "It's not hot enough." Emma stared at him, her lips pressed together, fighting the urge to say something she might regret. She took the cup back, poured a fresh one, steaming this time, and set it down without a word. He didn't notice the slight tremble in her hands. For the rest of his stay, Daniel barely spoke to her. He drank his coffee, looked at his phone, and left some money on the counter, too much, almost insulting, as if he was paying for her silence. When he left, Emma felt her shoulders relax, but her heart was strangely restless. Why did she care? He was just another customer. Just another rude, entitled man passing through. But deep down, she knew there was something different about him. Daniel got into his sleek black car, but before starting the engine, he sat there for a moment, staring at the diner through the windshield. He thought about the girl who had served him. She had barely spoken, but something in her eyes had caught him off guard. He didn't even know why he had been so cold to her. Maybe because everything in his life felt like it was crumbling, and lashing out was easier than admitting he was scared. That night, Emma went home exhausted. She found her younger sister, Lily, waiting up for her with 2 bowls of instant noodles on the table. "Long day?" Lily asked gently. Emma nodded, sitting down. "You have no idea," she said with a small laugh, trying to shake off the memory of Daniel's cold stare. But it clung to her anyway, like a shadow she couldn't escape. Meanwhile, Daniel was alone in his penthouse apartment, staring at the city's skyline. He had everything: money, success, power, yet tonight he felt emptier than ever. And for some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl at the diner. The next morning, Emma didn't expect to see him again. But just as she was wiping down the counter, the bell over the door rang. She looked up, and there he was. This time, Daniel didn't look so untouchable. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he hesitated before walking up to the counter. "Coffee?" Emma asked flatly, not bothering with a smile. Daniel's lips curved slightly, almost apologetically. "Please," he said, his voice softer this time. And just like that, the story that would change both their lives began to unfold. Emma poured the coffee slowly, determined not to look at him for too long. She didn't want him to think she was interested. But Daniel was watching her carefully now, as if trying to read her mind. "About yesterday," he said suddenly, and Emma froze. "I wasn't at my best." She glanced at him, startled. "Was that an apology?" "You were rude," she said simply, setting the cup in front of him. Daniel nodded, accepting the words without protest. "I was." Emma didn't know what to do with that. Most people who treated her poorly either ignored it or doubled down. But Daniel sat there, quiet, as if waiting for her to decide whether to forgive him. After a long pause, Emma sighed. "Forget it. You're not the first grumpy customer I've had." For the first time, Daniel smiled, a small, tired smile, but it lit up his face in a way Emma hadn't expected. "I'd like to be the last," he said quietly. Something about the way he said it made Emma's chest tighten. She quickly turned away, pretending to check the coffee machine. She didn't want him to see that his words had affected her. But over the next few days, Daniel kept coming back. Always in the morning, always sitting at the same stool by the counter. And little by little, he began to talk. He asked about the specials, even when he didn't care what they were. He made small comments about the weather, the music playing on the jukebox, the old man who came in every morning for pancakes and told bad jokes. Emma kept her answers short at first, wary of him, but soon she found herself looking forward to his visits. One morning, she caught him staring at the tips jar on the counter, frowning slightly. "You really live off that?" he asked, nodding toward it. Emma laughed softly. "No, I live off double shifts and instant noodles. The tips are just a bonus." Daniel's frown deepened. "You deserve better than that." Emma arched an eyebrow. "And what do you know about what I deserve?" He met her gaze, and for a moment, the air between them felt electric. "More than you think," he said softly. Emma looked away, her heart pounding. This was dangerous. Whatever this was between them, it couldn't go anywhere. He was a man with money, a man from another world entirely. And she was just a diner waitress trying to keep her head above water. But she couldn't deny the way her pulse quickened every time he walked through that door. One evening, after closing time, Emma stayed late to clean up. She was scrubbing the counter. She heard the bell ring. "We're closed," she called without looking up. "I know," said a familiar voice. Emma turned, startled, to find Daniel standing there, holding a small paper bag. "I didn't know what you liked, so I got a bit of everything," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "Dinner. I figured you probably haven't eaten yet." Emma blinked at him, speechless. No one had ever done something like that for her before. "Why?" she finally asked. Daniel shrugged. "Because you look tired." "And because I wanted to." Emma hesitated, then slowly untied her apron and sat across from him. They ate together in silence at first, but soon conversation flowed easily. Emma told him about her sister, Lily, about how she had practically raised her after their parents passed away. Daniel listened intently, his expression soft. "You're strong," he said quietly when she finished. Emma laughed a little. "I don't feel strong. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "That's what strength is," Daniel said. "Doing it anyway, even when it's hard." Emma looked at him, surprised at the sincerity in his voice. For a moment, she saw past the expensive clothes, the arrogance she had first met. She saw a man who was lonely, who carried his own heavy burdens. But before she could ask him about his life, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and Emma saw his jaw tighten. "I have to take this," he said reluctantly, stepping outside. Through the window, Emma watched him pace as he spoke, his face hardening with every word. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but when he finally hung up, he stood there for a long moment, staring at the ground as if he was at war with himself. When he came back inside, he didn't say what the call had been about. Instead, he thanked her for eating with him and said goodnight. Emma watched him go, her chest aching with questions she couldn't bring herself to ask. That night, as she walked home under the streetlights, she realized she was smiling. For the first time in a long time, she felt something that wasn't exhaustion or worry. But the next morning, when Daniel came in, his face was grim. "I have to go away for a while," he said, sitting down at his usual stool. Emma's stomach dropped. "Oh, it's business," he explained. "Family business. But I'll be back." Emma nodded, trying not to show how disappointed she felt. He reached into his pocket and set something on the counter, a small folded piece of paper. "If you ever need anything," he said softly, "call me." And then he was gone. Emma unfolded the paper. It was a business card with his name, his direct number, and nothing else. She stared at it for a long time, wondering why it felt like he had just handed her something far more important than a phone number. But what Emma didn't know was that Daniel's trip would set into motion a chain of events that would test them both and bring them closer than either of them ever expected. Days passed, then a week, then 2. Daniel didn't return. At first, Emma told herself it didn't matter. He was just a customer, a stranger who happened to be kind to her once. But as the mornings went by and his usual stool remained empty, she found herself glancing at the door every time the bell rang, hoping it would be him. Lily noticed it too. One night, as they ate dinner, Lily smirked. "You're quieter lately," she teased. "You've been thinking about him, haven't you?" Emma's cheeks burned. "Who?" "The fancy guy from the diner. The one who kept coming back every morning just to see you." Emma rolled her eyes. "You don't know that." Lily leaned her chin on her hands. "Emma, come on. Guys like that don't hang around diners unless they're interested in someone. And you like him too. I can tell." Emma shook her head, though her heart betrayed her. "It doesn't matter. He's gone. People like him don't stay in towns like this." But even as she said it, she thought of the card he had given her, tucked safely in her wallet. Just knowing it was there felt strange, like carrying a secret. Then one evening, just as Emma was locking up the diner, a man in a dark suit walked in. He wasn't Daniel, but he had the same sharp, expensive look. "Are you Emma?" the man asked. Emma hesitated. "Yes." He handed her a sealed envelope. "Mr. Daniel asked me to deliver this to you." Before Emma could ask anything else, the man turned and left. Hands trembling, she tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Emma, I don't know why I'm writing this. I don't usually do things like this. But I wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you. More than I should be. This trip is complicated. And there are things about my life you don't know, things I'm not proud of. But when I'm back, I'd like to tell you. If you'll let me. Daniel." Emma read the note 3 times, her heart beating faster with each word. She didn't know what he meant by things I'm not proud of, but the thought of him thinking about her made her chest ache in the best way. The next morning, Emma woke up earlier than usual, feeling lighter somehow. For the first time in weeks, she put on a little lipstick before heading to work. But just as she was beginning to feel like things were looking up, everything took a turn. 2 men came into the diner late one night, loud and rude, clearly drunk. Emma tried to stay polite, but they made crude jokes and refused to leave when she told them the diner was closing. "Come on, sweetheart, just one more coffee," one of them said, leering at her. Emma's stomach twisted, but she stood her ground. "I said we're closed. Please leave." The man slammed his hand on the counter. "You think you're too good to serve us?" Before Emma could respond, a voice came from behind her. "She told you to leave." Emma turned and nearly gasped. Daniel was standing there, his jaw clenched, eyes blazing. He stepped closer, his presence suddenly filling the room. "Out," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The men exchanged a glance, then muttered under their breath and left, slamming the door behind them. Emma's hands were shaking. She hadn't even heard the doorbell ring when he came in. "You're back," she said softly. Daniel nodded, his expression softening as he looked at her. "I'm back." Emma didn't know what to say. She had imagined this moment so many times, but now that it was here, her throat felt tight. "You shouldn't have to deal with people like that alone," Daniel said. "I'm sorry I wasn't here." "You can't be everywhere," Emma replied, but part of her was grateful, more grateful than she could say, that he had shown up at that exact moment. Daniel glanced around the empty diner, then back at her. "Do you have a few minutes? There's something I need to tell you." Emma hesitated, then nodded. She locked the door and turned off the lights, her heart pounding as she sat across from him in the booth. "I told you there were things about my life you didn't know," Daniel began, his voice low. "The truth is, my family is complicated. My father built a business empire, but he also made enemies. People who would do anything to get control of what he left behind. When he died, I inherited it all, the money, the power, the problems." Emma listened silently, watching the way his hands clenched together. I spent the last 2 weeks fighting off a hostile takeover. If I'd lost, hundreds of people would have lost their jobs. I didn't have a choice but to be ruthless. But sometimes I wonder if I'm becoming the kind of man my father was. Cold, unfeeling. Emma reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "You're not cold," she said softly. "You came back." For a long moment, Daniel just looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. Then slowly, he turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "Emma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what this is between us, but I don't want it to end." Emma's breath caught. But before she could answer, Daniel's phone rang again. He glanced at the screen, and his face darkened. "I have to take this," he said, standing. Emma's heart sank as she watched him step outside. Through the glass, she saw his expression turn grim, the way it had that night weeks ago. When he came back inside, his face was pale. "What happened?" Emma asked. Daniel hesitated, then said, "Someone tried to break into my office tonight." Emma's blood ran cold. "This isn't over," Daniel said quietly. "And I think whoever is doing this might try to come after the people close to me." Emma's breath caught. For the first time, she realized just how dangerous his world really was. And for the first time, she wondered if letting him into her life might put her in danger too. That night, Emma lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Daniel's words echoed in her head. "They might come after the people close to me." For the first time, she felt fear, real fear, not just for herself, but for Lily. Her sister had already been through so much. Emma had promised herself that she would keep Lily safe, no matter what. The next morning, Daniel was already waiting at the diner when Emma arrived. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. "I've arranged for someone to keep an eye on the diner," he said as soon as she walked in. "And on you?" Emma frowned. "You hired security?" Daniel nodded. "It's not negotiable, Emma. If something happened to you because of me, I never forgive myself." Emma crossed her arms. "I don't like the idea of someone following me around." "This isn't just about you," Daniel said softly. "It's about the people who might try to use you to get to me." Emma hesitated. Part of her wanted to argue, but the truth was, the memory of those men in the diner still made her stomach twist. "Fine," she said finally. But just until things calmed down. Daniel's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his expression was still tense. "Thank you." Over the next few days, Emma began to notice the quiet presence of the man Daniel had hired, always nearby but never intrusive. At first, it felt strange, but eventually she stopped thinking about it so much. What she couldn't stop thinking about was Daniel. Every day, he came to the diner, and every day, they talked a little more. Emma began to see sides of him no one else saw, his dry sense of humor, the way his eyes softened whenever he talked about music, the quiet sadness he carried when he thought no one was looking. One evening, after closing, Daniel asked her to come with him for a drive. "Where are we going?" Emma asked as she got into his car. "You'll see," Daniel said with a small smile. He drove out of town, down a winding road that led to a hill overlooking the valley. When they got out, the sun was just beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Emma caught her breath. "It's beautiful." Daniel watched her instead of the view. "It is," he said quietly. Emma felt her cheeks warm. She turned to face him, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Emma," he said softly, "I've spent most of my life keeping people at a distance. It was easier that way. Safer. But then I met you." Emma's heart pounded. "Daniel." Before she could say anything else, he kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, as if he was afraid she might pull away. But Emma didn't. When they finally broke apart, Emma felt dizzy, as if the world had shifted. "I don't know where this will go," Daniel admitted. "My life is complicated, and I can't promise it will ever be simple. But I know I want you in it." Emma smiled softly. "I think I want that too." For a moment, it felt like everything was perfect. But then Daniel's phone buzzed again. His smile faded as he read the message. "What is it?" Emma asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Another break-in. This time at one of my warehouses. They're getting bolder." Emma's stomach twisted. "Do you know who it is?" "I have an idea," Daniel said grimly. "But I can't prove it yet." That night, Daniel insisted on driving Emma home and waiting until she and Lily were safely inside. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said softly, brushing his fingers against hers before he left. But tomorrow brought more trouble. When Emma arrived at the diner the next morning, she found the front door already open and the place ransacked. Her heart dropped. Tables overturned, plates shattered, the register drawer hanging open. Daniel arrived minutes later, his face pale when he saw the damage. "This was a message," he said quietly. Emma's hands were shaking. "Daniel, I can't do this. I can't put Lily at risk." Daniel stepped closer, his expression desperate. "I'll keep you safe, Emma. I swear. Please don't push me away because of this." Emma looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't seen before, fear. Not for himself, but for her. And just like that, something in her resolved. "Okay," she said softly. "But we do this together." Daniel nodded, relief flooding his face. As they stood there in the wrecked diner, Emma realized that whatever was happening wasn't just about Daniel's world anymore. It was about both of them. And neither of them could walk away now. The police came and went, taking statements and promising to investigate. But Daniel didn't trust them to act fast enough. As soon as they left, he called someone from his team, his voice sharp and commanding. "Find out who did this," he said. "I don't care what it takes." Emma watched him, her heart tight. She had seen him angry before, but this was different. This was personal. That night, Daniel refused to let Emma and Lily stay at their apartment. He drove them to a safe house on the edge of town, a quiet, secluded place with reinforced doors and security cameras. "I can't risk leaving you unprotected," he said quietly. Emma wanted to argue, but deep down she was grateful. She could see the weight Daniel was carrying, the way his shoulders were tense, as if he hadn't taken a full breath in days. Late that night, Emma found him sitting alone on the porch, staring out at the dark woods. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside him. He looked at her, his expression tired. "I don't know how I dragged you into this, Emma. You deserve a simple, peaceful life. Not this." Emma reached for his hand. "Daniel, listen to me. I'm here because I want to be. I knew you were complicated from the start, and I chose to stay." For a long moment, he just looked at her, and then he exhaled, some of the tension in his face easing. The next morning, Daniel's phone rang. When he answered, his expression changed instantly. "They found him," Daniel said after hanging up. "Who?" Emma asked. "The man behind the attacks. My uncle." Emma blinked. "Your uncle?" Daniel nodded grimly. "He's been trying to take control of my father's company since the funeral. When he couldn't get the board on his side, he decided to scare me into stepping down." Emma's chest tightened. "He trashed the diner to scare you." Daniel's jaw hardened. "And now it's going to end." That evening, Daniel met his uncle at a private location. Emma begged him not to go alone, but Daniel insisted she stay at the safe house with Lily. "I have to face him myself," he said. "But I promise I'll come back." Emma paced the living room for hours, unable to sit still. She had just begun to relax when the sound of breaking glass shattered the quiet. Before she could react, two masked men stormed into the house. "Where's Daniel?" one of them barked. Emma grabbed Lily and tried to run, but one of the men grabbed her arm. "You're coming with us," he said. Emma's heart pounded. "Please, leave my sister out of this." The man shoved Lily aside and dragged Emma out the door. By the time Daniel returned, the house was swarming with security guards and police. "She's gone," Lily cried, running to him. They took her. For the first time in years, Daniel felt truly powerless. But then something inside him hardened. "They want me," he said, his voice cold. "Then I'll give them what they want. But I'm getting her back." He called his team, his orders rapid and precise. "Track them. All of them. I don't care what it takes. I want Emma back alive." Hours later, Daniel stood in a dark warehouse on the outskirts of the city, his chest tight as he heard Emma's voice coming from the next room. She was tied to a chair, but her eyes were fierce, defiant even in fear. Daniel stepped forward. "Let her go," he said to the men standing guard. His uncle emerged from the shadows, smiling coldly. "I told you, Daniel. You can't run this company. Hand it over, and she goes free." Daniel's hands curled into fists. "You're not taking anything from me." Not my company. And not her. His team moved in at that exact moment, surrounding the room. Chaos erupted, shouting, scrambling, the sound of footsteps pounding against concrete. Daniel ran to Emma, cutting the ropes from her wrists. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice shaking. Emma nodded, though tears filled her eyes. "I knew you'd come." Daniel pulled her into his arms. "I'd cross the world for you," he whispered. By the time the police arrived, Daniel's uncle and his men were in custody. As they drove back to the safe house, Emma sat quietly in the passenger seat, her hand in Daniel's. "Everything's going to be different now," he said softly. Emma looked at him, her heart still pounding from the night's events. "Good different." Daniel smiled faintly. The best kind of different. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that the events of tonight would change not just Daniel's future, but hers too. And deep down, she knew she wasn't the same girl who had once just served coffee behind a diner counter. Weeks passed after that night, but the memory of it stayed with Emma like a vivid dream. The fear, the danger, and the way Daniel had held her afterward, as if he never wanted to let go. The diner was repaired, thanks to Daniel, who insisted on paying for everything. "This place matters to you," he told her. "So it matters to me." Emma watched him supervise the repairs, talking with the workers, his sleeves rolled up, his expensive watch catching the sunlight. For the first time, she realized how far he had come, how much he had changed. He wasn't just the cold, impatient man who had once ordered a cup of coffee without looking her in the eye. He was someone who had let her in, someone who fought for her, someone who made her feel seen. One afternoon, Daniel asked her to close the diner early. "Why?" Emma asked suspiciously. "You'll see," he said with a mysterious smile. He drove her out of town again, back to the hill where they had watched the sunset weeks before. This time, he had a blanket laid out, a picnic basket, and a soft glow of lanterns that made the whole place feel magical. Emma's heart swelled. "Daniel, what is all this?" He took her hands, his eyes searching hers. "Emma, I've spent so much of my life building walls to keep people out. But you broke through them without even trying." Emma felt her throat tighten. "You remind me of who I want to be," Daniel continued. "Not the man the world expects, but the man who chooses what really matters. And what matters to me is you." Then he got down on one knee. Emma gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "I don't care about the company, the money, or the power," Daniel said. "None of it means anything without you. Emma, will you marry me?" For a moment, Emma couldn't speak. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "Yes," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, Daniel." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and before she could even admire it, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her. When they pulled back, Emma laughed through her tears. "I can't believe this is happening." Daniel smiled. "Believe it. This is our story now." Their wedding was small but beautiful, held right in the diner where they had met. The townspeople came. Lily stood proudly by Emma's side, and even the old man who came in every morning for pancakes gave a heartfelt toast that made everyone laugh. Afterward, Daniel surprised Emma with one more gift, a set of papers transferring partial ownership of the diner to her. "You've always dreamed of making this place your own," he said. "Now you can." Emma stared at the papers, overwhelmed. "Daniel, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep making the best coffee in town," he teased. Emma threw her arms around him. "Deal." Months later, the diner was thriving like never before. Emma managed it full-time, and Daniel often came by, not just for coffee but to sit with her during slow afternoons, to share quiet moments that felt like everything they had fought for was worth it. Lily started college, something Emma had worried might never happen, and Daniel made sure she had everything she needed. And though there were still challenges, because life always had them, Emma knew she wasn't facing them alone anymore. One evening, as the sun set and the last customers left, Emma locked the diner door and turned to find Daniel waiting with 2 cups of coffee. "To the place where it all started," he said, handing her one. Emma smiled, clinking her cup against his. "And to where it's going." They stood there together, watching the lights of the small town twinkle in the distance, their hands intertwined. Emma thought back to the first day she had met him, the arrogant, impatient man in the expensive suit, and she almost laughed at how far they had come. She had been just a waitress with tired eyes and big dreams, and he had been just a man who had everything but felt empty inside. Now they had each other. And somehow that made everything feel whole. As Daniel kissed her under the quiet glow of the diner's sign, Emma knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just the end of their story. It was the beautiful beginning of everything.